His phone lit up on the nightstand and I read the preview without blinking. Dr. Harper, your wife still thinks I'm your therapist. Don't delete anything. I need receipts for the book. My thumb froze on the glass because Mark was breathing heavy beside me, mouth open, one arm thrown over the sheets like he owned the whole room. The screen dimmed, then lit again, and the next line punched harder. Same room as last time. I'll record the after part too. I slid the phone off the charger like it was hot, like it might scream. The lock screen fought me with his Face ID, so I tilted it toward him while he slept and watched it unlock on the first try. His trust was a single eyelash of effort. A thread was already open. Not hidden. Not archived. Like he wanted to get caught by someone who wasn't me. There were screenshots of my own texts inside it, messages I'd sent Mark at 2 a.m. On my worst nights, the ones where I begged him to stay on the couch with me because I couldn't get the images out of my head, the ones where I admitted things I'd never said out loud. Under each screenshot, Dr. Harper had typed notes like captions. Good. More raw. Keep her anxious. My throat tightened so hard I tasted metal. Mark shifted, and I stopped breathing until he went still again. I kept the phone low, under the blanket, my eyes burning from the light and the sudden clarity. A voice memo sat in the chat, a little blue bar with a timestamp from 2 nights ago. I pressed play with the volume barely above nothing. Her voice came first, smooth and amused. Tell me again what you love about her. The real stuff. Mark laughed. A soft laugh I hadn't heard from him in months. She's loyal. Too loyal. She'll forgive anything if I say I'm trying. Dr. Harper hummed like she was tasting the sentence. And what does she not know? Then there was a sound, fabric, breath, the unmistakable wet punctuation of a kiss. I stabbed pause so fast my thumb slipped. My pulse wasn't romantic. It was survival. My body was already acting like it knew the rules. Stay quiet, gather proof, don't wake the thing that can hurt you. Another message from her sat lower in the thread. Remember, she can't find out until chapter 9. Promise me. Chapter 9. I scrolled up until my eyes landed on a PDF icon attached in the chat. The file name wasn't subtle. Working_draft_book_case_studies. PDF. My hand shook as I tapped it. A title page loaded, The Wives Who Stay, Confessions from the Other Side of the Couch. Under it, a dedication that made my stomach drop. To the men who told me the truth when their women couldn't handle it. I swiped. There were chapters. Real chapters. Not notes. Not outlines. Polished paragraphs with headings and little italicized, clinical observations like she was narrating someone else's life. And then I saw it. Case study number 3, The Good Wife. Age, profession, childhood history, details that belonged to me, dressed up like fiction but specific enough to be my skin. A line about the tiny scar on my left wrist. A line about the phrase I always say when I'm trying not to cry. Things I'd said in that office with my hands wrapped around a paper cup of water. She'd written my pain like a character trait. Mark had forwarded her parts of our marriage like homework. I didn't have to guess if he knew. His comments were right there in the margins, little notes he'd added. She says this a lot. Use this, it's accurate. Make sure you include the night she begged. My vision narrowed until the only thing I could see was that document and the way his name appeared at the top of the screen as the sender. He'd been sleeping next to me, holding me when I woke up shaking, driving me to appointments, telling me therapy was saving us, while he was feeding my insides to the woman who was supposed to protect them. I swiped again and found a section labeled Ethics, and Why They Don't Matter. Dr. Harper wrote about boundaries like they were outdated fashion. She wrote about participant consent with the smug certainty of someone who'd never had to live inside the consequences. And then, in the middle of a paragraph, she quoted something I'd said in session, word for word. I'm terrified I'm easy to replace. My breath snagged. I remembered saying that. I remembered the office, the warm lamp, the way she leaned forward and told me I was safe. I remembered thinking, for the first time in years, that maybe I could unclench. Safe. I scrolled down, hunting for anything that proved I was misreading this, that there was a different wife, a different scar, a different phrase, a different fear. There wasn't. There was a hotel confirmation email forwarded into the thread. The subject line alone made my lungs collapse. Thank you for your stay, room 1421. The date matched 2 nights ago, the night Mark told me he had to work late and came home smelling like peppermint and someone else's detergent. I believed him because I wanted the version of my life where he didn't do this. Under the confirmation, Dr. Harper had written, your performance after sex was perfect. The guilt makes you interesting on the page. Performance. Like my marriage was a lab experiment and Mark was proud to be a specimen. I took screenshots. Every page, every message, every attachment. My fingers moved like they'd been trained for this. I sent them to myself, then deleted the sent messages from his phone. I didn't trust the cloud. I didn't trust anything that could vanish with a tap. Mark rolled onto his back and let out a low sigh, like he was content. Like he hadn't just handed my life over to a stranger with a book deal. I locked his phone and slid it back onto the charger exactly where it was. Then I lay there, still as the dead, staring at the ceiling while my head replayed every session I'd had with her. The way she asked for specifics. The way she smiled when I broke. The way she nudged me toward stories I didn't want to tell. The way she'd insisted Mark should have his own space to process, meaning his own separate sessions with her, meaning private access to him, meaning. My stomach turned as the last piece snapped into place. She didn't just steal my secrets. She coached him with them. Because suddenly I could hear it, his phrases, his apologies, his I'm trying, his you're safe with me, his tell me what you need. All of it sounded less like a husband and more like someone reading from a script written by the woman across the couch. The room felt smaller, like the walls were leaning in to listen. Mark's hand reached for me in his sleep, landing warm on my hip like a claim. I didn't move. My phone buzzed on my side of the bed, a calendar reminder lighting the screen in soft blue. 10 a.m. appointment, Dr. Laney Harper. And in that quiet, with his hand still on me, I understood something that made my blood go cold. She wasn't just writing about my life. She was about to sit across from me in a few hours and watch my face while I told her I trusted her. Consequence, Mark's fingers stayed on my hip while I stared at the reminder like it was a countdown strapped to my chest. The lobby smelled like eucalyptus and money, and the receptionist smiled at me like she was selling calm by the hour while my phone recorded from inside my purse. Mark's name was on a clipboard behind the counter. Not scheduled next week. Not past due. Today. Right after mine. I signed my name with a pen that dragged, then stared at the little glass bowl of mints like it might bite. The wall had the same framed quote I'd read every week, something about healing, and I realized I'd been walking into a set. A door down the hall clicked open. Dr. Harper appeared in soft beige like she'd been poured into the color, hair perfect, lipstick subtle, eyes warm in the way that made people confess. She looked at me and her smile landed like a hand on my throat. Come on in, she said. Her office was exactly how I remembered it, lamp glowing, couch angled like a confession booth, the box of tissues placed within reach like it was a weapon she'd already loaded. I sat on the couch because that's where I always sat, and she lowered into her chair like this was a normal morning. Her gaze flicked to my left wrist. Not a glance. A check. Before we start, she said gently, how have you been sleeping? My mouth opened and closed, and she watched me like my silence was data. I pulled my phone from my purse and set it face down on my thigh. The recording light wasn't visible, but my palm was sweaty around it. Dr. Harper folded her hands. You look guarded today. She said it like she was proud. I reached into my bag and slid a folded printout onto the coffee table between us. Not the whole thread. Not the PDF. Just one message, enlarged enough that you couldn't pretend it was a misunderstanding. Your wife still thinks I'm your therapist. Don't delete anything. I need receipts for the book. Her eyes dropped to the paper and stayed there half a second too long. Then she looked back up at me, calm, curious, almost tender. Oh, she breathed, like I'd brought her flowers. The air went thin. I don't know what you think that is, she said, voice smooth. But I can see you're distressed. Her words were therapy words, the ones that turned accusations into symptoms. I leaned forward and pushed the paper closer. Read it out loud. Her smile didn't change. I'm not sure that would be productive. My phone vibrated against my leg, and I realized my hands were shaking hard enough to set it off. Dr. Harper's eyes lifted to my face again. Sometimes when we're anxious, we look for patterns. You wrote about me, I said, and my voice came out flatter than I expected. You wrote about my scar. You wrote my words. You used my marriage like a case study. There it was. The thing that should have made her flinch. She didn't. She crossed one ankle over the other and tilted her head. You went through Mark's phone. A statement. Not a question. Not I'm sorry. Not that's unethical. Just a neat little redirect, like she'd found the real problem and it wasn't her. I stared at her, and something ugly in my chest started to settle into place, heavy and certain. She went on softly, that's a breach of trust. The audacity made my skin prickle. You're having sex with my husband, I said. Her eyebrows lifted like I'd said something quaint. I'm not going to engage with inflammatory language. Inflammatory. Like the messages weren't sitting in my photo roll. Like the hotel receipt wasn't dated. Like Mark's laugh wasn't recorded. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, voice dropping into that intimate tone she used when I cried. What would you like to happen right now? I held her gaze and felt my nails dig into my palm. Tell me about the book. The warmth in her face flickered. Not panic, not guilt, calculation, like she was flipping through options. A lot of clinicians write, she said. It's common. Using your patients without consent isn't common. Her eyes softened in a way that didn't reach anywhere real. You're assuming things. You're hurt. Hurt people. You told him not to delete anything, I cut in. You said you needed receipts. She blinked once, slow. I have no idea what context you're missing. There was a faint click near the lamp, the kind of sound you don't notice until your brain starts cataloging threats. My eyes slid to the bookshelf, then to the little black device tucked behind a framed photo of a beach. A tiny lens. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like gravity changed. Dr. Harper followed my gaze and smiled again, like a cat watching a bird realize the cage is locked. You're very observant today. My throat tightened. You're recording in here? Her face stayed composed. This is a private practice. That's not an answer. She leaned back, slow. If you're feeling unsafe, you're free to leave. And that's when I understood what she'd built, a room where she could say anything and make it sound like my reaction was the illness. I stood up so quickly the couch creaked. The camera on the shelf stared right at me. Dr. Harper's voice stayed gentle. Sit back down. We can process this. I grabbed the tissue box and yanked it toward me. A wire snagged, thin and white, running from the bottom of the box to behind the couch. My fingers closed around it before my brain could second guess. Her eyes sharpened. So the warmth was a costume after all. I held the wire up. What is this? She didn't deny it. She didn't even pretend. She rose from her chair, slow and controlled, like she didn't want sudden movements on camera. Put that down. It wasn't a request. It was the first time her real voice showed through. I stared at her, breathing shallow, and she took one step closer. You don't understand how this works, she said quietly. You think you're the first wife who's walked in here with proof? My skin went cold. How many? Her smile returned, thinner now. Enough to know what happens next. A knock hit the door before I could speak. 2 quick taps. Dr. Harper's eyes flicked toward it, then back to me, and her mouth curved like she was savoring a punchline. That'll be Mark, she said. Right on time. Consequence, the doorknob started to turn while I stood there holding her hidden wire like a fuse. The door swung open and Mark stepped in with his jacket still on, like he expected a quick tune-up and a gold star. He stopped when he saw me standing instead of sitting, and his eyes flicked to the paper on the table, then to Dr. Harper, searching for the cue he was supposed to follow. Dr. Harper gave him a small, calming nod, the kind she used on me when I started crying. Mark, thank you for coming in. Your wife is having a difficult moment. A difficult moment. Not I've been sleeping with your husband. Not I've been recording you. Just a diagnosis with my name on it. Mark's shoulders dropped like relief. Babe, what is this? He kept his voice soft, like I was a skittish animal. I held up the wire I'd pulled from the tissue box. Ask her what this is. Mark's eyes landed on it and slid away too fast. That tiny flinch told me he already knew. Dr. Harper stepped closer to him, just enough that her perfume hit the air between us. This isn't helpful, she said, still gentle. It's escalating her. Her, Mark repeated, like a parrot. You're escalating. My phone in my pocket kept recording, a quiet little heartbeat of truth while they tried to bury me in tone. I walked to the shelf and pointed straight at the small black lens tucked behind her beach photo. And that? Mark looked, and for a second his face went empty, like someone had turned off the lights behind his eyes. Then he forced a laugh that didn't fit his mouth. That's probably just. It's a camera, I said. In your therapist's office. Pointed at me. While she writes a book about wives who stay. Dr. Harper's smile returned, polished and sharp. You're drawing conclusions. You're in a heightened state. Mark stepped toward me, palms out, the peacekeeper routine. Okay. Let's just breathe. We can talk about this at home. Home. The place where he slept next to me after sending her my screenshots. I pulled the printout off the table and shoved it into his hands. Read it. He stared at the message like it was in a foreign language, like he'd never seen her name on his lock screen, like I hadn't watched his face unlock the phone. He glanced up at Dr. Harper again. She didn't rescue him with words. She rescued him with permission. Mark exhaled and let his shoulders slump into confession mode. It's not what you think. I smiled without feeling it. Then tell me what it is. On your own. Without her help. He opened his mouth, and Dr. Harper cut in, smooth as oil. Mark has been processing intimacy issues. Sometimes transference can look messy from the outside. Transference. A pretty word for betrayal. I took Mark's phone from his jacket pocket before he could stop me. My fingers didn't ask. I held it up between us. You want messy? Let's play the audio. Mark grabbed for it and missed, and the panic in his eyes finally showed. Don't, please. Dr. Harper's eyes narrowed. That's private. It's mine, I said, and hit play. Her voice filled the room first, warm and amused. Tell me again what you love about her. The real stuff. Mark's laugh came next, soft and intimate. She's loyal. Too loyal. She'll forgive anything if I say I'm trying. The air changed. Mark's face went gray like the blood had left it. I let it run long enough for the kiss sound to land like a slap. Dr. Harper didn't flinch. Mark did. His hand went to his mouth like he could shove the sound back inside himself. I stopped the audio and looked at him. You did this here. In this chair. While she took notes. Mark's eyes were wet, but it wasn't guilt. It was fear. Not fear of losing me, fear of losing control of the story. He turned on Dr. Harper, voice tight. Why would you say it like that? That makes me sound. She interrupted him with a tiny, irritated inhale. Mark, don't fracture. Stay grounded. Stay grounded. Like he was the patient and she was the authority, like she owned his spine. I stepped closer until Mark had to look at me, not through me. Did you know she was writing a book? Mark swallowed. His eyes darted to her again. Dr. Harper answered for him, as if it was polite. He was aware I'm an author. My stomach clenched. So you both knew. Mark's jaw worked. She said it would be anonymous. I laughed, one short burst. Anonymous? She wrote about my scar. She wrote my exact words. She put our fights in chapters like entertainment. Dr. Harper's calm cracked just a hair. Your details are altered. Not enough, I said. Not for me. Mark's voice rose, desperate. You weren't supposed to see it. That's the whole. He stopped mid-sentence, and Dr. Harper's eyes cut to him like a blade. I leaned in. Finish that. Mark's throat bobbed. You weren't supposed to see it until it was done. Done. A completed book. A completed betrayal. A neat little ending where I found out only after it paid them. My vision narrowed again, but this time it wasn't shock. It was focus. I pulled up the email on his phone and shoved the screen toward him so he couldn't deny it. Hotel receipt. Room 1421. 2 nights ago. He looked at it like it was evidence at trial, and then he did the thing I'd always hated. He tried to make his face sad enough that I'd do the work for him. Dr. Harper stepped between us without touching me, placing her body like a divider. This is becoming unsafe, she said, voice still velvet. If you don't leave, I'll have to call someone. Call who? I asked. The board? The police? Your publisher? Her lips pressed together, annoyed now, and the warmth was gone. You're trespassing. I glanced at Mark. Am I? Mark didn't answer. He couldn't, not without choosing. Dr. Harper turned to him, and I watched her do it, the subtle squeeze of control, the coaching without words. Mark, she said, softer again, tell her you're committed to her healing. Mark swallowed and repeated it like a vow. I'm committed to your healing. The sentence hit me like nausea. He was saying healing in the same cadence she used, like they'd practiced. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my own phone, letting them see it now. Good, because I'm committed to the truth. Dr. Harper's eyes flicked to it. Are you recording? I didn't answer. I just looked at Mark and let the silence force him to fill it. His voice cracked. Stop, please. If you do this, she'll what? I asked. Write chapter 9 about how I couldn't handle it? Dr. Harper's smile returned, small and cruel. You're not thinking clearly. I stepped past her, yanked the beach photo off the shelf, and the little camera behind it blinked at me like it had been watching all along. Mark made a sound like pain. Dr. Harper's voice snapped for the first time. Put that back. I held the camera up between my fingers, tiny and damning. How many of us are on your hard drive, Dr. Harper? Her face went still, and Mark's eyes finally met mine with something raw, because he understood the same thing I did. This wasn't a fling. This was a project. Consequence. I stood there holding her hidden camera in my fist while Mark stared at it like it was the first time he'd seen what he helped build. Dr. Harper reached for the camera like it belonged to her, and Mark reached for my phone like it belonged to him. I stepped back and the edge of the bookshelf dug into my spine, the tiny lens still blinking in my fist like an eye that didn't know how to close. Give it to me, Dr. Harper said, voice low now, no softness left. You're stealing private property. You stole my life, I said, and I heard my own words come out clean, like I'd finally stopped bargaining. Mark's hand hovered near my pocket. Babe, please. Just hand it over and we'll talk. Talk. Like this was a misunderstanding and not a collaboration. I slid my phone out and held it up. I already sent everything to myself. Mark's face tightened. You didn't. I did, I said. Screenshots. The PDF. The hotel receipt. The audio. Dr. Harper's eyes sharpened. You're making threats. It's not a threat if it's true. She moved faster than I expected, stepping into my space, hand shooting toward my wrist. I jerked away and the camera slipped in my grip, clattering onto the coffee table. The sound was tiny, but it cracked the room open. Mark flinched like the noise hurt him. Dr. Harper didn't blink. You are spiraling, she said, loud enough to carry through the door. Mark, I need you to help me keep her safe. Safe. The word again, weaponized. Mark nodded like he'd been waiting for the line. Okay. Let's sit down. You're scaring me. I stared at him, and the sickness in my stomach turned into something colder. You're scared? I said. You sent her my texts like chapter notes. His eyes flicked toward the door, calculating exits, like a man thinking about witnesses. Dr. Harper reached toward the desk and I saw it, her phone already in her hand, screen lit, thumb hovering over something. Not 911. Not a crisis line. A contact name with a publisher's logo as the photo. She was calling protection, not help. I lunged, not at her, but at the camera on the table. I grabbed it and the wire at the same time, ripping the cord clean out from under the tissue box. The little device came away with it like a parasite pulled from skin. Dr. Harper's composure snapped. Stop. Mark stepped in front of the door, blocking it with his body like he'd done it 1,000 times in his head. You can't leave with that. Watch me, I said. He held his hands out, palms open, voice shaking with practiced concern. You're not thinking. You're going to ruin your life. There it was. Not I'm sorry. Not I messed up. Just a warning about consequences, like the consequences were mine to carry alone. Dr. Harper lifted her chin. If you take anything from this office, I will report you. Report me for what? I asked. Catching you? For theft, she said immediately. For harassment. For violating confidentiality. Confidentiality. From the woman filming me behind a beach photo. Mark swallowed hard. You don't understand how this looks. You've been unstable. If you do this, it's going to confirm everything. My skin prickled. Confirm what? He hesitated, and in that pause I saw the shape of the trap. He wasn't just cheating. He was building a record. All those sessions. All those notes. All those times Dr. Harper asked me to describe my worst nights in detail. All those safety plans she insisted we do on paper. Evidence, neatly stapled. Dr. Harper's voice softened again, almost sweet. I'm worried you might hurt yourself. The sentence hit like a slap. My mouth went dry. Don't. She shrugged like it was clinical. You've expressed hopelessness before. If you leave in this state, I have an ethical obligation. To destroy me. To make me a chapter, then a diagnosis. Mark's face did that sad thing again, like he was about to become the victim of my reaction. You said things, okay? You said you didn't want to be here anymore. I remembered that session. I remembered crying into tissues while Dr. Harper nodded and wrote. I remembered thinking I was safe enough to admit I was tired. And now they were holding it like a knife. I laughed once, sharp. So this is the play. Make me dangerous so nobody believes me. Dr. Harper didn't deny it. She just looked at my phone again. Hand me the device and we can de-escalate. My fingers tightened around the camera and wire. Move, Mark. He didn't. So I did the only thing that changed the situation. I raised my voice, not screaming, just loud enough to pierce the hallway. Help, she's recording patients. Dr. Harper's eyes flashed with pure fury. Mark's face went white. The receptionist's chair scraped outside. Footsteps rushed closer. Someone asked, Dr. Harper? Is everything okay? Dr. Harper forced a laugh that sounded like glass. Everything's fine. My client is having an episode. Client. Not woman. Not wife. Client. Like she'd already filed me under pathology. I shoved past Mark before he could tighten his block, shoulder-checking him hard enough to make him stumble. I hit the hallway with the camera clutched to my chest like evidence and sprinted toward the lobby. The receptionist stood up, eyes wide, and for a second I saw it in her face, the moment she decided whether to believe the woman in beige or the woman shaking with a wire in her hand. Dr. Harper appeared behind me, voice raised but controlled. Ma'am, please stop. You're taking equipment. I held up the camera so the receptionist could see it. This was hidden in her office. The receptionist's eyes snapped to it, then to Dr. Harper. Dr. Harper smiled like she'd practiced this too. That's not what it looks like. Mark came out next, and the second the receptionist saw him, her expression changed, like she recognized him. Like he'd been here before. He moved toward me slowly. Give it back and we'll handle this privately. Privately, where they could rewrite it. I backed toward the door, heart pounding, and pulled my phone up, screen already open to an email draft addressed to 3 places. The state licensing board, the clinic owner, and the publisher name I'd seen on Dr. Harper's phone. Dr. Harper's eyes locked onto the screen and something like real fear finally surfaced. Don't. My thumb hovered over send. Move. Mark took one step toward me anyway, so I hit send. The whoosh sound was tiny, but it felt like a gunshot. Dr. Harper went still. Mark's mouth opened like he couldn't breathe. I pushed through the glass doors into cold air, and the sun outside looked wrong, too bright for what I'd just done. Mark followed me onto the sidewalk, voice dropping into a hiss. You just destroyed us. I turned, holding the camera up between us like a bloody tooth. You destroyed us when you turned my therapy into foreplay. His eyes flicked around, checking for people, for phones, for witnesses. You don't know who you just messed with. I smiled, because for the first time in weeks I knew exactly what was happening next. Room 1421, I said, watching his face tighten at the number. 2 nights ago. Same room as last time, right? I'm going there tonight. Mark's voice cracked. Why? I stepped backward into the flow of strangers, the camera still warm in my hand. Because I'm done being your case study. Consequence, I walked away with her hidden camera in my fist while Mark stood on the sidewalk like a man realizing the story just stopped belonging to him. The hotel lobby was loud with suitcases and laughter, and I walked through it with Dr. Harper's camera wrapped in a napkin like I was carrying something that could infect me. Room 1421 was on the keycard I'd screenshot, and the elevator mirror showed my face too calm for what I was about to do. I didn't have a key, so I didn't go upstairs. I didn't need the room. I needed the moment where their script broke. I took a seat at the bar with a clear view of the elevators and the hallway that led to the restaurant. My phone was on the counter, screen lit, one finger resting on the red record button. The bartender asked if I wanted anything and I ordered sparkling water because I wanted my head sharp enough to cut. At 8:17, Mark texted, "Where are you?" At 8:18, another text, "Please stop." At 8:21, he called. I let it ring until it stopped. I didn't block him. I wanted proof of how quickly his concern turned into control. At 8:29, the elevator doors opened and Dr. Harper stepped out like she owned the building. No beige today, black coat, heels, hair down, lipstick darker. She scanned the lobby once, not nervous, just hunting. Then Mark walked out behind her, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight, eyes darting like he expected me to jump from behind a plant. He saw me at the bar and froze. Dr. Harper followed his gaze, and her mouth curved like she'd found the punchline again. She leaned up to his ear, whispered something, and he nodded like a trained dog. They started toward me together. I didn't stand. I didn't flinch. I just lifted my phone slightly so the camera caught them approaching. Mark tried first, voice low and pleading. "Why are you doing this here? In public," I said, "where you can't rewrite me." Dr. Harper slid onto the stool beside him like she belonged there too. "This is dramatic," she said, the word dripping with judgment. "You're trying to punish him." "I'm trying to stop you," I said. Mark's eyes flicked to my hand. "What is that?" I placed the napkin-wrapped camera on the bar between us and peeled it back slowly. The tiny lens blinked under the lights. Dr. Harper's face didn't change, but her fingers curled around her purse strap so hard the leather creased. "You're still carrying that," she said, almost amused. "You really are committed to your narrative." "My narrative," I repeated. "Not your chapter 9. Mark swallowed. "Can we just talk somewhere else?" Dr. Harper's tone sharpened. "Give it to me." I didn't move. "Tell me how many wives you recorded." Her eyes narrowed a fraction. "You're making accusations in a public place. Answer the question." Mark leaned forward, voice tight. "Stop. You're going to get sued." There it was again, his real fear. Not losing me. Losing safety. I tapped my screen so they could see the email thread I'd started earlier. Replies had already hit my inbox. The clinic owner. A licensing intake confirmation. A publisher's generic, "We take allegations seriously" line. Dr. Harper's gaze dropped to the screen and lingered. For the first time, she looked like a person who couldn't talk her way out of a room. "You don't know what you've started," she said. I nodded slowly. "I do. That's why I'm here." Mark's voice cracked, smaller now. "Babe, please. Let's go home." I stared at him. "Home is where you slept next to me after sending her my breakdowns like bonus content." His jaw clenched. "I was trying to fix us. By filming me?" Dr. Harper cut in, smooth again. "That camera is not for you. It's for safety." I smiled. "Then you won't mind if the hotel manager sees it." I slid off my stool and walked straight to the front desk, my phone recording the whole time. The manager on duty looked up with a practiced smile that died when he saw my face. "I need to report a hidden recording device," I said, placing the camera on the counter like it was evidence in court. It was installed in a therapist's office. It may have recorded patients without consent. The same therapist is staying here tonight in connection with an affair with my husband. The manager blinked, stunned into silence. Behind me, I heard Mark's shoes hit the marble fast. You can't just. Dr. Harper's voice snapped, sharp and urgent. Mark, stop. That tone wasn't therapeutic. It was command. Mark stopped like he'd hit an invisible wall. The manager's eyes moved between us. Ma'am, can you repeat what you said? I did. Slower, clearer, with dates, with the room number, with the hotel confirmation subject line pulled up on my phone, with my voice steady enough that it sounded like I'd rehearsed, except I hadn't. I'd just stopped protecting them. The manager's face tightened. Sir, ma'am, please step aside while I contact security and our legal team. Dr. Harper's mouth opened, and for the first time all night she didn't have a perfect sentence ready. Mark grabbed my elbow, hard. You're insane. The word hit like a familiar bruise, one they'd been saving for this exact moment. I twisted free and raised my voice just enough to carry. Don't touch me. Heads turned. A couple at the lobby couches stared. A man with a suitcase slowed down. The bartender watched like he'd seen fights before and knew which ones ended with cops. Mark's hand dropped like he'd been burned. Dr. Harper stepped closer to me, her smile back in place, but her eyes were flat. This won't end the way you think. I held her stare. It already did. Security appeared, two men in dark suits moving toward us. The manager spoke in a low voice I couldn't hear. Dr. Harper's posture stiffened as one of them asked her for identification. Mark looked at me like he'd never really seen me until now. You're ruining everything. I leaned in so only he could hear. No. I'm removing myself from your experiment. His face crumpled, and for 1 second I saw it, real regret trying to surface. Then Dr. Harper said his name again, sharp. Mark. And the regret vanished. He straightened like a puppet pulled upright. The security guard asked Dr. Harper to step aside. She hesitated, just a breath, then moved, heels clicking like punctuation. Mark took one last shot, voice low and shaking. If you do this, no one will believe you. I lifted my phone and showed him the recording timer counting up. They'll believe my voice. He stared at the screen, then at me, and something in him finally understood he couldn't gaslight a file. The manager asked me for my contact information. I gave it. I watched Dr. Harper's face while I did. I watched the smallest tremor in her jaw as she realized her case study had become a complaint number, a hotel incident report, a digital trail she couldn't charm away. Mark backed up like he didn't know where to stand anymore. I didn't chase him. I didn't beg. I didn't cry in the lobby for her notes. I walked out through the revolving door and felt the cold air hit my lungs like permission. Behind the glass, Mark stood beside Dr. Harper while security spoke to her, and he looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, like a man who finally understood he'd been sleeping with his own downfall. I didn't look back again. Consequence, the revolving door swallowed their reflections, and I walked into the night with my phone recording the sound of my own footsteps.